Yes, baby. This, yeah, oh, it smells so good. I love it. Hello, friends, and welcome back to our homestead. Today, I am harvesting yarrow. Yarrow is a beautiful, fragrant, very easy to identify herb that I would love to store up for the future. I grow a lot of it in my herbal garden, and it's um, it's a tall plant, couple of feet, 2, 3, even 3.5 feet tall, and it makes beautiful white flowers. I'm gonna bring the camera closer and I'm gonna show you. It is similar in looks to wild carrot or queen lace, but definitely different. And I want to show you the difference. But let me tell you, it's such a wonderful plant. Many people confuse queen lace and yarrow, but there are differences, many differences. Okay, first of all, queen lace is another name for wild carrot. And if you take the leaves of queen lace, which by the way also look like ferny, just like yarrow, if you rub them together, they're gonna have that carrot smell like. Also, the crowns are very different. They're gonna be all together as like a little crown all together. I have a picture here, side by side comparison. And queen lace has a little dot in the middle, almost like a pink or red or like just a dark dot right in the middle of the flower. That's how you really distinguish queen lace from other flowers that look similar. But if you look at yarrow, the flowers are a little bit bigger, okay, a little bit bigger. There is no middle dot, and they are all different in different clusters. See cluster 1, cluster 2. There are multiple clusters. And if you even look at the stem, they all separate in clusters like this. Okay, that's how you know it's not queen lace. This is yarrow. Also, the leaves, like I've mentioned, the leaves are, they have multiple little fern leaves. And if you roll them in your fingers, they're going to have a spicy, strong smell. Okay, not a carrot smell like queen lace or wild carrot. Okay, so that's the difference. So again, the crowns look very different. There is no middle dot in yarrow, and they all have different clusters. And the flowers, even the flower petals, are a little bit bigger than queen lace. So that's how I identify yarrow versus queen lace. Yarrow. Yarrow has a Latin name. It is called, and I wrote it down so I don't mess it up. It's called Achillea millefolium. And millefolium means that it has many leaves. In Russian, in my language, we call it тысячелистник. Тысячелистник because if you look at these beautiful little ferns, okay, it's like 1,000 of them. So that's why milli means, thousands of them, many of them. And growing up, we all knew this plant so well. We knew it so well because, first of all, it grows everywhere. It's found in Asia, it's found in Siberia, it's found in the United States, it's found all over the world, in New Zealand, in Australia, everywhere. Yarrow is such a popular herb. I think, one of those top 5 most popular herbs. And I think the reason why it's so popular, because first of all, it's been used for generations. Some literature called it the soldier herb because soldiers knew this plant very well. In the battle wounds, this plant was used to pack the wounds, not just, to pack the space, but because the active ingredients of this herb was able to stop the bleeding and disinfect the wound and speed up the healing and remove inflammation and therefore pain. But most of it is to stop the bleeding. Very often in modern medicine, a lot of things are taken from the military experiences and they've been implemented in everyday medicine, modern medicine. And we should also not forget the experiences of herbalism that has been out there for generations, for thousands of years. Unfortunately, We are forgetting our modern medicine took us away from the herbalism, and we are forgetting these grasses, these herbs, what they're for, how to use them, how to be cautious about them. I want to invite you all to join me to learn more about these herbs, how to use them, what are they for. So when you're driving down the road and you see these herbs, you'll know, oh my goodness, that's a yarrow. I know what it's for. Now, I don't recommend stopping and harvesting your herbs on the side of the highway or on the side of the road, because even though it's growing there, doesn't mean that it's ecologically clean. I suggest not to use them. I suggest going far away from the road to very clean ecological places to harvest. Yes, yarrow grows in the wild, on the meadows, fields, along edge of the forest, in the back of your gardens, on the back of your barns. This is growing in my herbal garden. Why? Because I actually planted it there, because I want lots and lots of yarrow. All right, so I harvested a beautiful pile here, and I want to turn it into a medicine so I can use it today and I can use it tomorrow. Very often people ask me, Lilia, why do you store away herbs? And I'll tell you why. Why do I like to use and store away herbs? Well, this is why I do it. See, today we have pharmacies that are readily available. Some of them are even open 24 hours a day. Sometimes we can even, go online and find medical care to have a virtual visit, and a doctor will prescribe you something. And it's so easy, and we can go ahead and pick up that medicine, right? But if we know history, and history repeats itself, we know that not everything stays the same, and things do change, and sometimes not always for the better. We need to be prepared and know what these herbs are for, how to store them, how to use them. So my homesteading friends, my moms, my gardener friends, anyone who likes and believes in natural remedies, I invite you, come along with me as we learn more about these herbs and how to use them. Okay. So it's not, about dooms and gloom kind of day prepping, but it is about a little bit more self-sufficiency. And just to know, if you're going on a hike up in the mountains, far away from anywhere, and somebody cuts themselves, what are you going to do? Right? So this is why we should know yarrow. Yarrow is fantastic. So there are many actions that yarrow has. Okay, so before I get to that, let me just mention what it's traditionally been used for. I have mentioned that yarrow has been used to pack wounds to stop the bleeding. Okay, one of the actions that this has is that even though it affects coagulability of the blood, it does not change the viscosity of the blood. So therefore, it does not have high risk for blood clots like some other things can do. So so that's why yarrow is often praised for stopping the bleeding. But also there was a small study done on women when they used this plant in sitz baths for episiotomy. So ladies, when you had babies and you had episiotomy, you know how not fun that is. There's a lot of swelling, there's a lot of inflammation, very difficult to treat that area. Yarrow's been used, and it showed that it significantly improved the time of healing, reduced the swelling, pain, and healed up a whole lot faster and stopped the bleeding. Okay, so it was done externally. So also it has antimicrobial properties. So therefore, when it packs the wound, it helps to combat many bacteria. Yes, there have been some studies done, but unfortunately, not many studies have very definitive information. So everything that I share in my videos, please do your own research. Please, look up, equip yourself with herbal books, look online, and know your herbs and whether they're good for you or not. Okay, so as I'm sharing all this stuff, I think I'm going to start working at the same time. You know how I am. So I am going to dehydrate it on my dehydrating trays. I need to prep all these herbs for that. And I always like to work on the porch because if there's any bug left on these flowers, and let me tell you, bugs love these flowers because they're very fragrant, and not bad bugs, I'm talking about the bees. Um, I like to bring it on my porch, and if there's any little bug anywhere in my pile, it'll give it a chance to run away and live. So that's why I like to make all this big mess on a porch and not in a house. I'm going to be using just the aerial parts of the plants. That means I'm going to be using these little branches with leaves, or you can even take these little ferns. They're not leaves, they're like tiny little ferns, and take them right off just like this. They're easy to come off, okay? Or you can use these branches as well because they're very young and soft and pliable. So I'm just laying it down on the tray, my dehydrating tray, and I'm also going to be now cutting off the flowers as well. I'm not going to use these branches that already weathered down from, damaged by the rain or the sun. I'm not going to use them. Those I'm going to be discarding. And now these trays are going to go into the dehydrator, and they're going to be dehydrated. If you are using multiple different herbs at the same time in your dehydrator, I suggest labeling your trays. So once they come out, you'll know exactly what you have here. Because let me tell you, once the trays come out of the dehydrator, you don't know what this looks like, because this is going to look like any other grass. So that's why it's important to label it so you'll know exactly what this is. Well, I know this is because this is comfrey. So I just preserved some comfrey. This is going to go in a jar for long-term storage. Clean, very dry jar, and I label what year, because dried herbs are only good for 2 years and no more. I'm also going to be using the flowers. The flowers are definitely used in remedies, but not the roots. And because this is a very woody kind of part, I don't need it. I'm going to be just taking these little ferns and these very woody parts and damaged leaves I do not want. So that's going to go into my compost pile. But flowers, definitely flowers can be used. So how there are many, like I said, many actions, many uses of this plant. And let me tell you how I am going to be using it. It can be used externally, as I mentioned, okay? It can be also used externally in a bath. You can steep a bath to use for eczema, okay? For any kind of like infectious things, people can be used, they can be used in a bath. So yarrow can be used internally and externally. So it can be used in a poultice, okay? It can be packed in a wound. It can be applied as a compress. When you make an infusion, soak a cloth in it and apply it externally. It also can be turned into an ointment, okay? An ointment can be made with when you infuse yarrow in oil, and then you can use it as an ointment. But yarrow can also be used in a spray. Yes, you can make a spray and put it in a spray bottle. And what yarrow can be used is when you infuse yarrow in some sort of alcohol, usually in alcohol, and it can be even the rubbing alcohol. So, but that is not going to be used internally. It's going to be used externally because yarrow can help to repel bugs. I also know that sometimes when people have picnics or any kind of events outdoors, they will include yarrow flowers in a floral arrangements for the tables, because that will deter bugs. And yes, yarrow, infused yarrow in some sort of alcohol. And like I said, it can be any cheap alcohol, and then you further dilute it for a spray. Then that can be used to deter bugs. Okay, isn't that fantastic? Yarrow can also be used like crushed up and applied to a bug bite. It helps to detoxify and pull out toxins and treat the area of the bug bite. So see, many wonderful uses. And I just mentioned externally. But also this plant can be taken internally. However, there are precautions and I will cover them later in the video. So please stay tuned. Um, Internally, it can be taken as tea or infusion. I do have to tell you, it's not going to be very sweet and enjoyable because it is a bitter herb. So therefore, it's used more for like an infusion. You drink it as a treatment internally. So what are the uses of internally taking this herb? It can help to stop gastric ulcer, bleeding ulcers. Okay. Also, because it's a bitter herb, it can aid in digestion. It can aid in during painful menstruation. Okay. It can help to take down some of those very painful cramps, female cramps. Okay. It can help internally also for bleeding. So, for example, I know that someone who has continuously bleeding hemorrhoids, people also been taking that as well. I do have to mention that there is not a lot of research done on yarrow, and many of these yarrow uses are mainly passed down by herbalists through stories, narrative stories, but not necessarily experimented by research. That is why please do your own research. Talk to your providers, making sure that it's actually a safe plant for you to use internally. It can also be used for anxiety and aid in sleep and relaxation. Okay. It also can be used in treating respiratory infections. There was some um, talk among herbalists that this has been used during COVID times when people had all those respiratory issues. Okay. But again, nothing is backed up and supported by research out there. I am creating a lot of these trays because it looks big and bulky right now, but trust me, as soon as they dehydrate it, they shrink to such a little tiny amount. And then once I break them up even into manageable pieces, they're going to be down to nothing. It goes down to at least quarter of a size of the original fluffy area that they're taking right now. Okay, so there are side effects. Always remember, there are side effects of any kind of herb. Just because it's a natural does not mean that it's extremely safe. Generally, it is safe. I know, for people who don't take any medications and who has no allergies, it's generally safe. But there are side effects. One of them is if someone who has an allergy to the daisy family of plants or chrysanthemums, this may cause a side effect, including also marigolds, if somebody who's allergic to marigolds. Obviously, pregnant and breastfeeding. Usually, most herbs are not safe or recommended during pregnancy, okay? Because we don't want to cause any kind of potentially danger to pregnant mama and the baby. Also, during breastfeeding, same thing, okay? That is not recommended. Besides drying, I'm also going to be making a tincture preparation. And you know that I love to make tinctures using 100 proof vodka. Again, I'm using only the aerial part, meaning the flowers and just the leaves. And if it's very soft branches without these woody stems, you can go ahead and use those stems as well. But in this case, these are the tall ones and they're kind of woody. I don't want to use them. I only want to use these little ferns. Okay, so tinctures can be used and then used internally, okay? But it has more precautions, as I've mentioned. There are less precautions for external uses, but there are more precautions when you take it internally, obviously. Yarrow has a precaution, especially because it affects your coagulability. So, as I mentioned earlier, it helps to stop the bleeding, right, when it's used topically. But however, it also has this alkaloid, an active ingredient alkaloid that is similar to the name, the Latin name, and I wrote it down so I will not mess it up. It's acylane, So this Acylane may reduce clotting time if someone who's taking this internally, and again for a prolonged period of time, and internally, like a tincture or infusion. So if that affects your clotting time and someone is going in for a colonoscopy or endoscopy or any other procedure, invasive procedure, this may affect the bleeding time, and it would be recommended to stop it before a couple of weeks before any kind of surgical procedure, because that may affect the bleeding, and that is not a good idea, because let me tell you, your doctor is not going to be very happy with you because they could not control the bleeding during a surgical procedure. So that is something very amazing about this herb, even though it can stop the bleeding, but it also can promote the bleeding because it affects the clotting time as well, that alkaloid, the active ingredient. Okay, so what I'm doing is, as what I always do, I just chop it up into little chunks. I do not pulverize them in a food processor or a blender. I have been receiving many questions recently about how I make my tinctures. And I have to tell you, every herbalist has their method. Okay, some herbalists prefer to use glycerin. Some herbalists prefer to use other kind of solvent. I prefer to use 100 proof vodka. I do not use the high quality of Everclear or whatever it's called, when there's 170, 190 proof alcohol. I do not use them, because if I did use that very high percentage alcohol, I would have to add water as well. And I choose not to do that. I choose to use 100 proof vodka, because when it's 100 proof vodka, it makes my math very easy. I know that it's 50% water in here and there are 50% alcohol. That way, I don't have to worry about anything else. Also, my method is the folk method, just like they've done it for centuries without measuring things or without using scales. Okay, because we doing the homesteading way. All right, so all I'm doing is that I am cutting them up. I'm cutting them up because I want more of surface area exposure. Okay, but there is no need to put it in a blender, because if you put it in a blender, you're going to extract all that juice right away. You're going to make a pasty thing, and then it's going to sit on the bottom of your jar. You want alcohol to circulate throughout this herb. So all you need is just chop it into, I don't know, manageable chunks. It doesn't have to be very, very fine. And drop it in a jar and let the alcohol do its thing. Because each plant, each herb has alcohol soluble properties and water soluble properties. And I want this 100 proof vodka to do both. Okay? And then I put it in a dark place away from the sunlight. See, the sun has, by design, breaks things down. We don't want it to break it down. We want to do the extraction. So it's going to sit quietly in a dark place for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And in case I forget and it sits there longer, it's okay. That happens. I find that tinctures that sit only for 2 weeks, like some herbalists discuss, is not enough. Not enough. I like to give it a little bit more time. What is the concentration of herb to alcohol? Well, some herbalists believe that it should be 1 to 2, meaning that it's 1 part material and 2 parts solvent. I don't use that. I do it even simpler way. I take a vessel, glass vessel. I usually recycle them. This was an olives in this jar before. And I fill it about 3/4 of the way up. I know it's a bulky plant, so I'm just going to gently push it down with something. Would this fit? Yeah. I'm just gonna push it down a little bit. Okay, just push it down. It doesn't have to be compacted. No, just push it down. And then after it's filled 3/4 of the way up with my plant material, I'm gonna fill it all the way to the top with alcohol. Okay, so I think I'm almost to the top where I need to be. All right, yep, 3/4 of the way up, maybe a little bit more, but it's very loose at the bottom. So, okay, let's add the alcohol to top everything off. And then this bad boy is gonna sit and do its thing and let the herb and the alcohol marry together. And trust me, this has been done for centuries. We're not inventing anything new. If anything, we need to bring back these practices and learn how to use them for the benefit of our health. All right, so I'm just gonna shake it, make sure everything gets between the nooks and crannies. As always, I have to put a label and I say when I start it and the time when I need to strain it. Okay, because as soon as you walk away, you're going to forget what's in this jar. Let me open the cover again and make sure that I have, yep, good. Make sure that everything is submerged under the liquid. Very often I'm receiving questions from my subscribers about different herbs and different recipes that I'm using for these herbs. And I do have to mention that, remember, herbs belong to cultures. And every culture where that herb grows uses it differently. You know how we say the Chinese herbs, and it's going to be the Chinese style of using those herbs. There's Native Americans, and we know that this is how the Native Americans use those herbs for medicine. There's also herbs that come from all over the world, and that means those cultures use them differently and they prepare them differently. So, because my background is Russian Ukrainian and I can read and understand those languages, I do study a lot of herbs that come from Eastern Europe. So, yarrow is used there a little bit differently than here. Yes, it's used for wounds, the stop the bleeding, and that sort of thing. That goes common across the board everywhere. But in Russian folklore herbalism, it's used also for other things. It's used to treat pain, neurologic pain. As a matter of fact, sometimes there is it's used for headaches and neuralgia pain, that sort of thing. It has been used to treat fevers. Yes, it can induce sweating, and therefore it will cool down the body and allow for the fever to calm down. So like I said, it's different culture uses the same herb, but slightly differently. Okay, so the dried herb, once it's dried, it has to be stored in a glass jar away from the sunlight, or in a container where it will stay dry without absorbing moisture from the environment. Okay, you can make an infusion, and in the Russian folklore herbalism, it is recommended to make an infusion and then drink 1/3 of a cup 3 times a day, right before meal. That means if you make 1 cup, it will be enough for the full day because it will be consumed in 1/3 of a cup before meal. If it's a tincture, the tinctures can be used starting with 1 dropper full and increased all the way to 2 dropperfuls. And it's always like in droppers, and it's an amber bottle because, again, we're trying to protect it from the sunlight. See, alcohol-based tinctures last a very, very long time. And this tincture that I've made using 100 proof vodka, I can strain it 6 to 8 weeks later, put it in a dark bottle, and use it internally. But also I can take a little bit of that, further dilute with water, put it in a spray bottle, and use it to prevent bug bites when we're working outside. Okay, so we don't want to put straight up alcohol on our skin. It can burn, it can sting, but diluting it with a little bit of extra water, it will be safe to be used to fight bugs when we are working outside, outdoors. I also recommend that we should equip ourselves with books. Okay, see, the internet is all wonderful, but books are better because you have the pages to go through and read about them. So I love many different herbalists. I follow many different herbalists. I have ton of many different herbal books. One of them I met personally, and she's a fantastic herbalist from New England. Her name is Maria Noel Groves, and she has few books, very easy to follow. You can get them on Amazon, buy purchase for yourself. I can leave a link if you're interested in the description box where you can get it from. Go ahead, order it. Just click on the link. It will bring you straight to that book. Very great book with recipes and how to do things. Also, this book has been circulating all over the social media. Oh, my pen is falling out. And it is by Nicole Appelian, also PhD. Fantastic book. She talks about how to use yarrow and the benefits of yarrow. Research is slow to follow herbalism, okay? Because herbal has been around for many years and research not so long ago. But yes, there is some research that's been done. And one of the researchers did a study that showed using yarrow internally for patients with MS, showed that it significantly reduced flare-ups of active illness. So I think it's a positive move in the right direction as far as the modern research goes. So friends, I urge you, go find these herbs. Either grow them yourself, they're beautiful ornamental in your garden, or go look for them on the fields, on the meadows, forests, while you are hiking. Know this herb, know how to use it, preserve it, and it's a wonderful thing to have in your house at any time to use. So friends, I hope you're encouraged to learn more about herbalism. Follow me if you have not subscribed yet. Subscribe, leave a comment. How do you use yarrow? What do you do with it? What is your best quality about yarrow? Why do you love it, or why do you hate it? So on this note, friends, I hope we become friends on my YouTube channel. So be encouraged and try something new.